Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the SH MonsterArts Godzilla vs. Kong MECHAGODZILLA from Godzilla vs. Kong 2021. It's a mouthful, but it is MECHAGODZILLA, so we had to review it. Big thanks to Bluefin for sending me the review sample of this guy so I could show it to you. I know a lot of you guys were interested in the Kong and the Godzilla. Unfortunately, I still have those packed up from when I moved, so I can't do a quick comparison for you guys, but it is bigger, and you can check those respective reviews up in the corner up there for the size comparison if you want to. I will do a size comparison for you, but I don't have those. I'm sorry. I did just move recently. But this figure is better than I thought it would be. I was a little bit let down by the character design in the movie. I was a little bit worried about the figure, but I think the figure does a pretty good job of doing what it can with the design. So let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. Now, I'm going to measure the height for this guy with his legs bent a little bit because that's how he's going to be standing almost exclusively. And if you want to change it, you can, but that's how it's going to be. So it's just, let's say 19 centimeters. There's like a little bit of a fin sticking up just past that, but it's right around 19. And that's going to be, let's say 7.5 inches. Pretty close. I know those aren't going to convert exactly, but you'll have the idea from that. Now, before we get into anything else, let's do a quick question of the day. How did you feel about this design for MECHAGODZILLA? For me, I don't care that it wasn't like true to the original version of MECHAGODZILLA. It wasn't likely to be in a way that was successful, so I get that. But for me, it just doesn't have the right look. The arms are too big. It throws off the whole thing, the skinny body, the big arms. It's weird looking. You can get away with this type of body when you have the body of Godzilla with the giant torso and the really meaty legs, but the more humanoid proportions throw it off for me. I'm wondering how you guys feel. I'm guessing some people really like it. Just curious. Also, how do you feel about the Michael Bay Transformer look here? For me, I think a few more solid panels would have been good rather than a million little pieces, but I think it's fine, and we're going to review it regardless of my preference for the design or not. Second question of the day, which is also kind of an observation. When I reviewed Godzilla and Kong, a lot of people were complaining about the size, and I don't really understand that complaint because there's no scale at which it makes sense to make these figures based on the, like 1-to-1 scale. It just doesn't make sense. They're going to be tiny no matter what. What difference does it make if it's 5 inches or 6 inches or 7 inches? Now, some of you guys out there are thinking that's a big difference and it could make a big difference. But in my experience, 5 inches is fine. So I think this scale is okay, and he's in scale with the other ones as far as I can remember. So that seems fine. So yeah, 5 inches will get the job done. Okay, so let's go ahead and just look at the aesthetic on this guy. It is mostly silver plastic with some silver metal. And then there's a little bit of paint here and there. There are basically two different shades. We have the light silver, which is like a lot of it. And then we have a slightly more gunmetal-y color, which is you can see on the arms. And where's a good example? The ribs right there. I think that's the best example. There's a little bit of, it's actually a darker gunmetal, but that's about the amount of paint you're going to get here. It's not a ton. Unfortunately, the character design was such that he was just solid silver for the most part, so I can't really fault them for it. I don't know how you would even do shading on something like this, other than just blasting it with an airbrush. So I can't fault Bandai for making it the way they did. You have a few different shades, I think that's enough. And then you do get a little bit of red here and there. Let's see how clean the red is. That's going to be an interesting note. So let's look at the eyes first. The eyes look clean. I don't see any problems there. That looks pretty good. And then the fins appear to be, I'm not noticing any that are off specifically. So yeah, I think they did a good job with what tiny little bit they had to do. The paint job is good. Again, I can't fault them. I had to blame the character design, so I can't complain. Aesthetically speaking, I mean, like the sculpt is sharp as hell. There's no dull spots. There's no soft spots. They did a good job with the sculpt. They did a good job with what little painting they had to do. I can't complain, so I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I would give the character design a 2 out of 10, this version, but the figure is done really well. As far as accessories go, we don't have a ton. We have the two open hands that come on in the package. Then we get two kind of grippy closed hands. That's it. Not a lot. I'm guessing most of you are going to think we need more. I would probably agree with you. Some little like missiles shooting out. I believe there were missiles. Like he's got missile pods on him, so I think so. Anyway, some kind of effect part would have been awesome. And we don't have that. So that is definitely a bit of a bummer. Kind of the same thing with Godzilla where he didn't have the nuclear breath or whatever they call it. The laser beam. The Kamehameha. So yeah, it could be better. I'll go 5 out of 10. There's not a lot you needed, but something would have definitely been nice. Now, as far as articulation goes, I want to start with something that's kind of an aesthetic. It's actually two somethings. First, the something is in the chest here, or I guess it's more towards the stomach. These panels here flip down, and they have like little missile pod type things in there. So that's a cool little detail. I like that. This thing is chock full of detail. And we'll get to more of it as we do the articulation, but that's kind of an aesthetic thing if you want that. There is no paint in there though, so I don't know, I don't have an exact memory of if it's supposed to be like colored in there or not. I'm guessing those would be sealed until they open up to fire, but I don't know. I can't tell you. I couldn't find an image of it, but you do get that, which is kind of a nice little touch, and they're very well executed, by the way. And then up here also on the shoulder pads, we have some Iron Man type stuff, if I can get in there and get it out. Don't have long fingernails, so sometimes this is a difficult task. Let's try this side. Oh, come on. There we go. So each shoulder has one of these guys. Another little missile pod, which is pretty cool. You can see how it looks lifted up from the front and from the side. Again, there's no paint or anything. I don't know if that's accurate. It seems like maybe there should be some kind of paint on there, but there is not. So be aware of that. Okay, now let's get back to the articulation. The head, we'll start with the mouth. It does open pretty far. I think that's all right. It looks pretty good to me. No problems there. There is detailing in the mouth. That's fine. The head can't look up any higher than that with the mouth open. And it can't look down any farther than that with the mouth open. You have to close the mouth to get it to look down to clear the neck, which is kind of a bummer, but you can keep the mouth open, or you can close it all the way and look down even a little bit farther. So he can look down that far, and he can look up that far. Could be better, not bad. Going side to side, it rotates and leans. You have a bunch of different parts moving to make that work. You don't get a ton of range, but I think it's enough. Like, it should be fine. I don't think you really need more than that for this guy. These shoulder pads are hinged on their own. They move independent of the shoulder, which is cool. You do get a butterfly joint, which is actually a ball peg, it feels like. So you get a little bit of vertical movement, and then you get your front to back, which is pretty nice. I like that. You get your rotation here for the shoulder, then you get your hinge out here. It's a little bit stiff, but you get almost horizontal. Should be okay. Should be enough. And then it doesn't go all the way down. I don't think you're going to really need it to. That's as far as it'll go. This guy right here gets in the way. There is no bicep swivel. You get your swivel down here at the elbow, which should be, again, okay. Could be better to have a true bicep swivel. That's almost always the case in my opinion, but you do have this. And then you have your elbow bend, which is also pretty stiff. I do believe a lot of these joints have die cast in them, and that tends to be tricky, but I could be wrong. I can't tell for sure. These feel like they're just plastic, but I don't know. It kind of feels like it's die cast in the middle and then plastic on the sides, but I'm not positive. The bend you get is very tight, but just shy of 90 degrees because of the plating on here. You can't rotate the forearm or the bicep, so that's all you're going to get going forward. If you bring it in, you can bend it forward or bend it in just a little bit more to get a true 90-degree bend, so you have a little bit more leeway, but then you can't go any farther up. So you are limited to some degree there. The wrists are just your basic ball pegs, so it's fairly limited. MonsterArts are known for having fairly basic engineering. This guy is loaded with hinges compared to most MonsterArts, so I think that's interesting. Some people love the basic design, some people don't as far as the articulation goes. For me, I don't care as long as it works. This one works more or less. I don't know if you're going to want more or not. That's going to be up to you, I guess. It wasn't that nimble in the movie, so I don't know. Alright, for the hips, we have some pistons going on down here. These are not functional pistons in that they don't actually do anything, but you do get the plastic that slips inside the other plastic, and that's pretty cool. This one is not meant to be attached to anything right here. Can you get in there? Yeah, that little one. That's not meant to be attached. That's just a floater to look cool. But otherwise, those two pistons do kind of tuck in on each other, or on themselves, and you can get the legs out about that far, so not the best splits in the world, but I don't think he's going to be doing martial arts anytime soon. Bringing the leg forward, it comes out to the side just a little bit. So that's as far forward as it goes. We're looking at this leg here. Going back, that's as far down as it goes. So it doesn't have the world's greatest range. This flap here doesn't move. It just stays connected to the leg. You do get a thigh swivel, though. That's pretty cool. And these pistons do have a swivel down here, so as you rotate it, they function. Very nicely done. Basic, but it gets the job done, so I like that. You do get your thigh swivel. For the knees, you have some more fake piston action going on down here. These all just tuck in, so that's pretty cool. I'll show you as we bend it. They just tuck in. You get just shy of 90 degrees, but it does work, and it does look fairly, like, functionally mechanical, so that's all right. And you get the leg fully straight out if you want to, so that's okay. And then you do get, technically, the knee bends at the top and at the bottom, but only kind of. You're moving on this pivot right here and this pivot, but it's more just for looks. It doesn't really do anything because this is fixed and these are fixed, so that's all you're gonna get. It's fairly basic, but also kind of complex in like a basic kind of way, if that makes any sense. For the ankles, we get surprisingly good range. They go all the way back. And if you get that out of the way, pretty far forward, like that's pretty good range. And then you do get an ankle rocker, like a true traditional ankle rocker. So his feet work really well, and they have this big, none of this moves down here, and these are metal. So you just have these giant metal base plates of feet, and they work really well, so he's going to stand no problem. These hinge to get out of the way, that's nice, or to hide the joint. This part back here hinges as well. And these side pieces don't move, but they don't have to because you don't need them. You have the clearance you need. So yeah, in a way, it's kind of basic, and at the same time, for an SH MonsterArts figure, it's a little bit more complex than you would have expected. I think it works well enough. There are some things that I would prefer be a little bit different, but it's fine. And before we get into an actual rating, though, I do have to talk about my favorite thing on this figure, and that is the tail. Each piece is individually articulated. It's not loose at all. It's not too tight, which is good. It's not gonna be a problem. Like, you can just move it around, and it works surprisingly well. It's so much fun to do. Like, it's one of those things where it's just like, it's satisfying to see it function properly, because there's a million joints here, but the way they, like the spacing for the radiuses and everything, it just works so nicely and fluidly. I very much appreciate the effort that went into the tail. So you shouldn't really have any trouble posing the tail. It's not going to do anything crazy, but it does work. So I like that. I like that a lot. They could have easily done it like every other segment or something like that, but this is flawless, like, seamless, no problem at all. Very, very pleased with how that tail functions. So very happy with that. Okay, so final articulation rating on this guy. I'll give it a 8. I'll give it an 8. It's good. It definitely has room for improvement. I'd say 20% more improvement would be nice, but it is pretty good. I'd like to see a little bit more range out of the hips and the elbows and things like that, the head too, but it's good enough. I think it'll be okay. And for an SH MonsterArts, like I said, it is relatively complex for that line of figures, so I think that's all right. So, final verdict on this guy. I really can't stand this character design, this version of MECHAGODZILLA, but that's not the figure's fault, and I think Bandai did a good job making a good figure out of what they had to work with. I mean, what else were they going to do? So, I'm going to give it a final verdict of 7 out of 10. Bordering on 8, because I really want to keep it at 7, though, because it needs more accessories. I really want to say 8 just because of how technically detailed the sculpt is and how well it's all put together. It's got a high level of finish, but the articulation holds it back, and not having effect parts holds it back a little bit. So I'm tending to lean towards 7. You might give it an 8 if you like all the shiny bits and the fact that it's a really, really clean sculpt. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But for me, the effect parts really would have made it, and then a little bit more articulation wouldn't hurt. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a final verdict of 7. That's my assessment. You guys can let me know how you feel in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, you can give it a thumbs down, and if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day, and thousands already on the channel, so make sure you come back for all of that. In the meantime, keep collecting.